It's 9 p.m. Do you know where your key fob is?
Hey there, Nate Benson here. On the agenda tonight, taxes for the residents of Buffalo are going up, but how far up will they go? A city attorney for North Tonawanda was arrested in Myrtle Beach. Plus, weeks after the vandalism at Highmark Stadium, we still don't have a clear answer about who done it. Mayor Ryan wants to take the lead on the redevelopment of the 198, and Governor Hochul wants to bring the Winter Olympics back to New York. You know, I medaled in ski dancing in Lillehammer. Pete Gallivan is off tonight, so you're stuck with me. On the Agenda starts right now. Thanks for spending some time with me this week. Taxes for Buffalo residents are going up, and for anyone who paid attention during the campaign last year, they would not be surprised by that. This week I sat down with the deputy mayor and members of the Common Council to talk about what this will mean for the city budget.
Could it be 8%? Yes. Could it be 10%? Possibly. Could it be 12 or even 15%? That's a real possibility. Could it be a 20% tax increase? Unlikely, but I can't definitively tell you no right now. Sorry. Anyone who has paid attention to the Ryan administration since the day they took office in January would not be surprised that taxes will increase for city residents. And if you haven't...
At the end of the day, Buffalo residents pay some of the lowest taxes in New York State.
According to Deputy Mayor Benjamin Swanekamp, the current deficit for the city is hovering around $30 million.
Well, the only way to get out of it is to begin to increase revenue.
And the only way to do that is to raise property taxes or cut services.
The housing administration looking in terms of cutting services because there's not a ton of fat to cut.
Things have been, I think, cut to the bone extensively. When we compare our headcount and key departments to other upstate cities,
Swanekamp would not commit to a solid figure just yet, as the administration is still working through different scenarios. But residents should expect to pay,
less than $30 a month for most folks, even less for some, with a lower assessed home. But for a median home in Buffalo assessed at around $209,000, you're looking at $23 a month maybe.
Obviously, though, there are a lot of people on fixed incomes, low income, a lot of rent in Buffalo too. Those landlords are possibly just going to pass, even higher rents on to those tenants to make sure that they cover their base too, right? So again, how do you balance all this so it's the residents not, brunting all of this?
At the end of the day, the property tax is the primary revenue source for municipalities in New York State and across much of the country. So we do know that there are many programs for folks that are on fixed incomes to take advantage of for different incentives, for seniors, for veterans. There's lots of programs there that can modify folks' tax bills. We are looking at other ways to, I don't want to say punish, but basically hold owners of vacant and abandoned property accountable and generate more revenue from those properties there and try and reward our property owners that take care of their properties, things like that. But at the end of the day, Buffalo residents pay some of the lowest taxes in New York State. And if we compare Buffalo taxes to those of all of our neighboring communities, Amherst, Tonawanda, West Seneca, even Cheektowaga, other communities like that, our taxes are half or even a third of what their residents pay for the exact same assessed house.
But the demographics of those communities are vastly different as well too, though. I mean, you're dealing with wealthier suburbs versus poor urban center.
It depends too, but we think that the residents, maybe especially residents of a poor city, deserve to have great services, right? They deserve to have good community centers, they deserve to have great pools, and those communities can oftentimes provide more services to the residents than Buffalo can, and that's because of that disparity there. And I would also note, Cheektowaga, for instance, is not some incredibly wealthy town, right? It's a working class community with lots of schools and kids, and it's an increasingly diverse community. So, I don't think it's that far off base.
For Council Majority Leader Leah Halton Pope, she's hoping for protections that could be put in place for residents on low or fixed incomes, or even the ability to pay your taxes monthly instead of all at once.
There's no opportunity to pay on anything. And so as a council, my colleagues and I even think the administration agrees, we've talked about this separately prior to him even coming in, allowing people to pay on their taxes as opposed to having to pay the whole thing could be helpful. So when you say it's $20, $30 a month, or even in previous years it's an $11 increase per month, you don't pay monthly. But if we give people an option to do that, and just upgrading our software to allow us to do that, that can help as opposed to demanding a certain amount.
again, not many people, especially those in fixed incomes here in Buffalo, aren't going to have an extra, 30 times 12, $240 a year. They might not have that.
Exactly. So there's a couple of things that I'm personally working on and have been discussing. It's a resolution I put in. My colleagues also supported it. The previous administration said that they would support it. I've talked to the state representatives briefly about it, and it's going to take a little bit of finessing and seeing if we can work it out, but a tax circuit breaker to protect those low income and generational homeowners. Making sure we're working with Majority Leader People Stokes years ago, we did a property tax cap. The purpose of that was actually for the Fruit Belt community specifically. At the time, it ended up impacting 7 communities throughout the city of Buffalo, and that's for long-term senior residents. You had to be living in your home for 25 years. You were at a certain income level and age, and that protected people from having an increase over their taxes. This would be a little bit different, so it would be a percentage, like you couldn't be taxed over this amount, like if you made this, whatever that amount is. That takes a little bit more finessing, but I do think that protects our residents. We need to figure out what that's going to be so that the burden doesn't shift too heavily to one person over the other as well. And so trying to be responsible about that in the interim while we wait to see what the budget is.
The city for years, even pre-COVID, was just spending more than it was raising, and that seems to be very apparent just because we've had one problem after another, whether it was rescue money funding to fill the gap or, a bailout from the state. The only way to fix that is either to raise revenues by taxes or cut services. I mean, there's not a lot of fat left on the bone of City Hall.
No, I do have to say the previous interim mayor, they did cut a lot of, I think it was 16% or something like that. I can't remember the exact number. They made some significant changes. There isn't a lot of fat, but it shouldn't be on the backs of individuals. And so I will say, we as a city could have done a better job prior to me even coming in with our funds, et cetera, to plan for this. And it was part of our discussion even in finance today. If I know, I have expenses that are going to be coming up, and just because I happen to get a bonus somewhere, I can't spend it all in one shot on certain things that are not going to be sustainable in future years. And so we need to make some hard decisions without cutting services. We just can't. We may need to pull back on some things, but I don't see how anybody would be fully supportive of cutting services and raising taxes astronomically. It just wouldn't work.
Fillmore District Council member Mitch Nowakowski is hoping that the level of services the city offers are maintained but are managed better in Ryan's budget.
Now the rubber meets the road or the potholes. So we have until April 15th that the mayor proposes a budget to the Common Council, where we then have until the end of May to submit amendments, additions, or any changes to the budget that he proposes. At that time, we'll know with better certainty what the state legislature exactly is giving Buffalo. We've seen an announcement from the governor, but it's a lot different when you see a passed budget from the state. And from Finance Committee meeting today, we're starting to see some of those revenues trickle in, but the critical thing is when they trickle in, when our cash flow happens. Seneca Gaming, the compact money comes in at a certain time. We have the sale of the ramps where we're waiting on that potential sale for that infusion of dollars to come in, which then will change what the deficit is that remains. I spoke to the mayor yesterday. There's no surprise that we are still going to be stuck with a structural deficit. So these one-shot revenues, if it's the parking ramp, if it's compact money, if it's cannabis dollars, are all variables in a document that we ultimately need to pass to govern the city of Buffalo. So I haven't heard for certain what number they're going to propose to the Common Council, but I do see that it's going to probably be, the mayor's going to submit a significant tax increase in his proposed budget.
I'll be talking to the deputy mayor shortly. He indicated the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority, taxes are going to have to go up. The number I keep hearing is anywhere between 10 and 17%. What impact will that have on residents in Buffalo?
So the first is making sure that homeowners aren't hit with too hard of an increase where they are not able to budget or plan for it appropriately. But with a city where we have almost half renters, we know that landlords are going to make renters eat that increase. And so to make sure that we could still provide services, we have to have an honest, transparent, and realistic budget. So the best thing that we can do, especially for the mayor's administration as they propose this to the Common Council, because they are we have a very mayorally heavy government. It's their role to propose something to then execute it. And the biggest thing is that we have to make sure that people are prepared and know what that number means. But ultimately, when you look at a percentage increase, and people throw out numbers, 8, 9, 10, 17, 15, is what rate per thousand for residents are going to pay. What does that actually mean? Does that mean $50 extra a year to your tax bill? Does it mean 110? And then ultimately, where does the tax burden lie when it comes to the commercial rate? So we have the homestead rate, and then we have the non-homestead rate, which is commercial and residential. And those are very critical, as the mayor has stated that he wants to realign where that tax burden lies. Does it lie on a landlord that owns 5 properties? Does it land on commercial corridors that he believes need to be paying more? So it's all speculative until he submits the budget to the Common Council for consideration.
The mayor also campaigned, it's not one thing he's going to have to do. It's not just raising taxes, but it also could be cutting services too. You look at the budget, probably more than anybody on the council. Where is there fat to be trimmed? It doesn't seem to me on the surface that there is a lot of fat to trim.
There really isn't if you don't want to impact services. When residents want to have their recycling picked up every week, they want emergency calls, they want to see their city invested in. But one thing that is undeniable within our city budget is overtime for city departments. And we understand that that's a binding agreement that is going to come to expiration. And so what I hope to see in this upcoming budget is the mayor puts in those realistic numbers, but then ultimately shows that he's actively negotiating with these departments to get overtime in control, because that is the largest number you'll see in the paper. Every time an administration puts in a number for that overtime, the actuals never come in to what they budgeted for. It always comes over. So playing with real numbers and making sure that we get these collective bargaining agreements in.
The city attorney for North Tonawanda was in Myrtle Beach back in February, and while he was there, he was arrested for public intoxication.
According to the police report obtained by Two on Your Side, on February 19th, officers were called to 2801 South Kings Highway in Myrtle Beach, which according to mapping services is a Red Roof Inn. It was there officers were told, quote, a man was extremely intoxicated and was found lying on the floor outside the building. According to that report, the man was North Tonawanda City Attorney Ed Zabolski, which for the Lumber City is an elected position. The report goes on to say Zabolski eventually went inside and was, quote, being loud, boisterous, and physically throwing objects in the lobby. Officers approached Zabolski, who noticed a cut on his feet and unsure of his whereabouts. He was placed under arrest and charged with public intoxication.
It's an unfortunate situation. Kind of feels like Groundhog Day a little bit.
North Tonawanda Mayor Austin Tylick is referring to Zabolski being arrested and charged for DWI and the unsafe backing of a vehicle in November 2023. Zabolski took a plea to those charges in 2024 and had his license suspended for 90 days and paid a fine.
We understand people make mistakes. It's, of course, everyone's human. But when you're in an elected position, you are held to a higher standard. And I would say especially someone who is elected as an attorney, who represents the law, understands the law, and should abide by the law.
Mayor Tylick, along with members of the North Tonawanda Common Council, believe he should resign from his position.
I had a brief conversation with Mr. Zabolski today just to get his thoughts. I relayed understanding, things happen. And it sounds like he's, considering all options, and we're waiting to hear from him.
Does it erode public trust when someone in his position, city attorney, has now been busted twice for alcohol-related incidents, within the span of 3 years?
I would say, based on a lot of comments I've seen, calls that I've received, yes, trust is a huge thing when it comes to public office. And we want to build trust with the public. It's not easy in an elected position, and certainly with my position, the city attorney, our council members, we work to build that trust with the public. So, not abiding by the law, doing things wrong, even if you don't intend to, it does erode public trust.
Should he resign?
Myself and fellow council members do believe that it's in the best interest of the city.
Within the last 90 minutes or so, we received a statement from Zabolski, and he says he's not resigning. Zabolski was arrested in North Tonawanda back in 2023 and charged with a DWI and unsafe backing of a vehicle. And what you see on your screen right now is body cam video of that incident. However, back on February 19th of this year, Zabolski was arrested in Myrtle Beach. According to the police report we found, he was found lying on the floor and then was allegedly throwing things in a lobby. And when approached by police, he did not know his whereabouts. He was charged with public intoxication. Tonight, Zabolski issued a statement that said in part, quote, "I do recognize my social drinking has led to some poor decisions, so I will be taking some necessary steps to address those issues, which I will keep personal to me and my family. Having said that, my issues have never impacted my work, nor have there been any such accusations. That is why I have no intention of resigning my position." Now, according to court records, Zabolski received a conditional discharge in Myrtle Beach court hearing yesterday, and he will have to pay a $150 fine. Coming up on the agenda, we take a look at the vandalism that happened at the new Highmark Stadium, but first a look at the weekend weather. Welcome back. It's been nearly a month since there was a vandalism incident at the new Highmark Stadium that was described as pornographic in nature. And while some details have been hard to come by, I've been able to move the story forward just a little bit.
Back on February 16th, work at the $2.2 billion stadium project halted after graffiti was found in the suite area. Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz has referred to that graffiti as pornographic in nature.
It's a $2 billion stadium. There was work that had to be redone, and it shouldn't have happened. It was stupid, it was juvenile, but it was also criminal.
A $100,000 reward was offered. Details of the vandalism have been hard to come by since it happened nearly a month ago. On February 21st, Gilbane Turner confirmed 2 individuals had been identified in connection to the vandalism, but no arrests were made. Now we're learning new details. Multiple sources tell 2 on your side that at least one of the suspects may have worked for a firm owned by Bills Hall of Famer Thurman Thomas. Thomas owns 34 Group, and they're one of the numerous construction firms doing work at the stadium. Those sources say that the suspect may have been an independent contractor working for Thomas's firm. 2 on your side reached out to 34 Group and received this statement from CEO Ron Giuliano. "We have only heard hearsay and unsubstantiated claims about our company's involvement and other companies as well. Since the investigations are ongoing and with no charges initiated, we suggest you reach out to the proper law enforcement for a comment." Last week, the county executive mentioned that he was told several people were being booted from the union as a result of the vandalism. I followed up with 34 Group for clarification, asking if a 34 Group employee or employees have been terminated because of the ongoing investigation into the vandalism. Giuliano said in a statement that, quote, "The nature of our work over the course of the past 3 years on the stadium is very fluid. We must ramp up and down with manpower based on the needs of the project dictated by Gilbane Turner. We were directed to reduce our workforce by 3 individuals as a normal course of business. As this is an ongoing investigation, suggest further inquiries be directed to the Sheriff's Office." The Erie County Sheriff's Office says the investigation is ongoing.
I've been told that if they had sufficient evidence, they would charge an individual. I've also been told if the individuals were determined to be whoever they were going to be thrown out of the union.
Next on the agenda, Governor Hochul wants the Olympics to return to the Empire State, and Mayor Ryan wants to control the Scajaquada Expressway, so to speak. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Mayor Ryan has sent a letter to the state DOT calling for control of the redevelopment of the Scajaquada Expressway, and seemingly the state DOT is okay with that. Sort of. Maybe.
On Thursday, Mayor Ryan's office announced that he penned a letter to the state DOT asking that the city of Buffalo become the lead agency for the redevelopment of the Scajaquada Expressway. The letter reads in part, quote, "I am requesting that the City of Buffalo be given lead agency status and include $56 million in the Transportation Improvement Plan to advance the region central through a new environmental review and design process. This will allow coordination with the New York State Department of Transportation on the Route 33 project and will lead to a better outcome for both corridors and the citizens of our city." You may remember, much like the 33, the Scajaquada Expressway has languished in a kind of purgatory that seems to plague big Buffalo projects. Back in 2020, the state DOT passed the planning of a reimagined Scajaquada corridor to the Greater Buffalo-Niagara Regional Transportation Council, after the public roundly rejected plans the DOT had for the 198. In 2023, the GBNRTC delivered the so-called Region Central Plan that included a public consensus for what to do with one of the major arteries of the Queen City. Mayor Ryan campaigned on wanting to take a more direct role in large-scale transportation projects.
It was a really exciting announcement, and the Conservancy is very happy about it. We have been on this journey with the Skagit Corridor Coalition and the 198 effort for over a decade.
Katie Stevenson is the executive director of the Olmsted Conservancy, one of the institutions that support the Skagit Corridor Coalition.
If you take a look across the country and even across New York State, the cities that have been able to move these types of projects forward have had really strong city leadership. And historically, with this project in particular, there has been a vacuum of city leadership. So what this means for this project, I think, is a real opportunity to reset.
This is a project that begins and ends in the city of Buffalo. The Region Central Plan built a lot of consensus. So we think we can build on that consensus.
Brian Dold is the co-chair of the Skagit Corridor Coalition.
There's a consensus but no design. What's the consensus and how will that evolve into a design?
Yeah, so the Region Central was really a planning process, but they really got into the details of, removing the highway infrastructure and building a multimodal corridor, parkway-like, that, does all the local connections that it needs to, connects the city within itself, but eliminates those highway elements, the high speed that makes things unsafe within cities.
So what does the state DOT think about all of this? In a statement Thursday, the DOT said in part, quote, that they share Mayor Ryan's commitment to improving mobility, economic vitality, and quality of life for all Buffalo residents. Our focus at this time is advancing the Queen City Forward initiative, and we look forward to continued engagement and partnership with the community as part of our ongoing series of listening sessions.
Wrapping up the agenda this week, Governor Hochul was part of a fireside chat hosted by Politico. Spoiler alert, there was no fireplace. During that conversation, however, the idea of bringing the Winter Olympics back to New York was brought up, and the governor did not shoot the idea down.
I mean, do you think it's a dry run for getting an Olympics in New York? I mean, I know you probably have seen Assemblymember Bobby Carroll and his push to get like a New York City, Lake Placid Winter Olympics. This is, I think, based on kind of the model that Italy was able to do this past Olympics. He's been passing out these pins that very hopefully say coming soon.
2 days ago. Anybody here not have one of Bobby Carroll's pins? No.
I was going through my laundry and I found it nearly.
It was in my pocket 2 days ago. No, listen, Bobby's not the only one who's excited about this. I share his passion. I mean, if not us, then who? We are ready for this. And I think we were reminded of the magic of hosting the Olympic Games when we saw so many replays of the Miracle on Ice from 1980.
Right.
During the Olympics of this year, when we were so proud of our men and women, our teams. But I think, give that a round of applause. I mean, the women don't get enough applause. Donald Trump, we have a women's team that won too, okay? But I digress. We are ready for it. This is not just a dry run. We've done it before. Mm-hmm. And I have made significant investments in the Olympic facilities. We are actually being positioned to be the place for the sledding events for if Milan was not ready. So we invested money and anticipated.
They would have done some of the bobsled stuff.
Yeah, we were ready for that. I was up there. I didn't test it out, but I was watching, how they, everything we need to do to be ready. So we are in a world-class facility. We've invested in it. And if you create the connection like they did in Italy between, yes, our venues in the Olympics, but also, New York City. I mean, who does not want to come to New York City? I think the other choices might be Calgary. Nice place, I'm sure, but there's only one New York City, right? So I'm making a big pitch for this. I'll work with Bobby and anybody who wants to do this. Maybe it's 2038. I guess I'll have to stick around longer than you guys want me, but I'll have to stick around and make sure that happens. But no, I think it's going to be great. We're an Olympic state. We are.
That will do it for the agenda this week. Remember, the news never stops on WGRZ+. Next week, we continue our expose on zinc. Is it needed? Thanks again for watching. I'm Nate Benson, and we'll see you at the next one.